Executive Director of Kuaina, Ulu Awamo. We'd like to mahalo Ms. Heidi Tsuneyoshi, who's joining us today for our Gubernatorial Talk Story. And, mahalo, Heidi, for joining us. Before we start, we're going to show a little video on what KUA does. And then I will start opening for the questions.
Thank you.
Kuaʻaina are the grassroots rural people of Hawaii. Ulu is to grow. Awamo is the carrying stick, used to shoulder the weight of many. Kuaʻaina Ulu Awamo means grassroots growing through shared responsibility. KUA is a backbone organization that supports networks of communities across Hawaii. They are fishers, farmers, fish pond kiaʻi, and limu gatherers. Together, these practitioners, educators, researchers, and community stewards are working toward a shared vision in Aina Momona, rich, abundant ecological systems that support community well-being. These experts of land and sea hold wisdom and solutions for some of Hawaii's most difficult social and environmental problems. Your support helps us respond to the needs of our communities. It helps build a better and more just future for generations to come.
Mahalo, Jer. So Heidi, I want to just read a statement I think that's significant and important for the state of Hawaii and for the people we serve in our networks. We're focused on a movement to care better for Hawaii, our resources, our environment, and our culture. And that statement is, the Hawaii Constitution makes clear that our natural and cultural resources, including our nearshore marine resources, are subject to the public trust and therefore must be managed and protected for the benefit of present and future generations. The Hawaii State Constitution further requires the state and its agencies to protect and enforce Native Hawaiian rights, including traditional and customary practices associated with and dependent upon carefully managed and abundant nearshore resources. So Heidi, what you can do is we give you about 5 minutes to just introduce yourself, your campaign, or anything you want to say about your vision for our state, and then we'll begin asking the question.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And thank you for everything that you yourself, KUA, and all the partners have been doing to try to elevate the conversation about what needs to happen for our resources here in our beautiful home. My name is Heidi Tsuneyoshi, and I am running for governor. A lot of what has just been played in the video and much of what was just described in that brief statement is what is very important to me. I'm very rooted here in our place. My family is, my great-great-grandfather came from Kenai, Maui, where he was the medicine man for King Kamehameha III. My great-grandfather was the principal for the school in Lapahoehoe before the tidal wave. And after the tidal wave, moved our family to Oahu, where he worked at the Kamehameha School for Boys. And so it's a legacy of service, a legacy of kuleana and responsibility, just really understanding who we are, where we came from, and what's so important about understanding how things were managed by our people from so long ago that we really need to bring back and learn from now. I currently serve as council member on the Honolulu City Council, and having served in the Honolulu City Council for the past almost now 4 years, really have seen so much about what the people are going through and continue to go through. Learned a lot more about how government is working from the inside out and how the process of governance really has come to be a hindrance to the people as opposed to a system that helps the people and works alongside the people in caring for our people, for our land, and for our resources, and all that we need to build a better future. I'm a mother of 2 daughters. My daughters are 24 and 22. And a big reason why I decided to run for governor at this time is that I'm very concerned about the type of legacy that we are leaving for our future generations. I'm very blessed, as I just shared, to have a very strong and powerful personal legacy of my family here. And I want to make sure that we can continue that legacy and perpetuate that legacy for generations to come. And as we know, so many of our family and friends have already left here because they don't feel like they have a place here. They can't make it here. They're just feeling so hopeless about the situation here in our home, which to me is such a huge concern and weighs heavy on my mind and on many of our minds as to how we are going to turn things around. Many people have lost hope already, saying there's nothing we can do to turn it around. We've gone too far. But meeting with people like yourselves and working as council member for District 2, which covers 40% of the island, including communities like Kahaluʻu, who has been a part of working very diligently to represent their communities and find better ways forward for resiliency and adaptation. I'm just inspired by all that I've seen. And I know that if we have people in office that are really mindful of working with our communities and supporting our communities for what is needed to create a better legacy, we will have such a better, bright future that we all know we can have. But it is going to take learning lessons from the past and incorporating that not only in words, but in action for what we need to do to create a better future. So my platform really is about working towards fiscal responsibility in government and stop wasteful spending in government and spending in places that really don't benefit the people. We've seen it over and over again that we know that we all pay a lot of taxes. We know we pay a lot to live here, but when we look to see how those taxes are being used, we don't see it translate to things like having high quality education for our keiki, having resources in our community for mental health and health care, to support nonprofits and what they want to do. And especially for communities such as our rural communities and our neighbor island communities really feel like they're underrepresented and underserved. And as governor, we want to make sure that everyone is represented and that we address the issues that we've known about for decades now. So I'm very encouraged and grateful again to speak with you today and to the many partners who have continued the journey and put forward the action and have done so much to create a community of like-minded and with the same heart for the people and our land to move forward and do right by our people and our land. And thank you for the opportunity to share with you today. I'm encouraged by all that you've done and continue to do and look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Heidi. So
Thank you.
I'll ask you the first question. I live on Kahaluʻu, Oahu, sort of live at the cusp of what was very much a rural area and what has become a little town called Kaneohe now, and have grown up at a place where I would say much of my community has sort of, I guess, curbed development into our side of the island in a lot of ways. But anyway, I think our first question really has to do with whether you can identify your administration's top 3 priorities that you would like to have with regard to protecting Hawaii's cultural and natural resources.
So as we know, the state, the Department of Land and Natural Resources and the Board of Land and Natural Resources is the agency and the department that's really supposed to work with our communities to decide with each community what those resources are and how each community feels that those resources can be managed. And so as governor, we'll be work with and make sure that those leaders within the Department of Land and Natural Resources are engaged in the community and are going out in the community and working very actively to identify the concerns, the places of concern for each community. As we know, as you mentioned, your community is very special and unique. And as I've gone through the state, every community has their different unique characteristics and those things that they know that needs to be addressed. One thing that I have concerns about with the state level of government, including the Department of Land and Natural Resources and the Board of Land and Natural Resources, is many times it's so many degrees of separation between what the decisions are being made and what the communities are actually asking for. So have a much more engaged Department of Land and Natural Resources and the Board of Land and Natural Resources to go into the communities, work with each community to see what the plans are of how to manage the resources there, to not only develop good working plans, but actually put money and funding and resources behind making those plans a reality. As I mentioned, and I've represented areas like Kahaluʻu, we've been working on the resiliency plan for time, but having the opportunity to get the funding and resources to support those activities that are identified by the community is the next step that we have to do very quickly. So as governor in my administration, I would work hands-on directly within each community, have representation for each community, identify the specific needs of the community, and put resources to create action plans that will actually happen and move forward on the plans that the community sets forth.
Thank you, Heidi. Next, I'll pass a question to Uʻi.
Aloha, Heidi.
Hi, aloha.
Mahalo nui for being here with us this afternoon. I'm Uʻilani Naipo. I'm a lineal descendant of Miloliʻi, South Kona here on Hawaii Island. And the second question really we have for you speaks really to a personal experience, not only for me, but for my community of Miloliʻi. So just, not too long ago, Tuesday last week, Governor came to Miloliʻi and he signed our rules, which codified our traditional fishing practices. And these rules are to be put in place in support of our Miloliʻi community-based subsistence fishing area. Since 1994, which legislation put into the language and authorization for the Department of Land and Natural Resources to create these community-based subsistence fishing areas. Until we signed, there was only one community-based subsistence fishing area, and that was Haena. And so until last week, there was now we have two, and it's taking way too long, way too long. So this question for you goes as follows. For nearly 3 decades now, communities like Haena, like Moʻomomi, like Miloliʻi, like Kipahulu, have worked with government agencies to come up with collaborative solutions to natural resource management that are consistent with our native Hawaiian practices. These are traditional and customary subsistence practices recognized in our Constitution. We have the ike that is critical to protecting and caring for our land and waters. Progress should not have taken nearly 30 years. As governor, how would your office support and expedite ongoing efforts for community-based natural resource management? How will you remove the barriers for progress? And how will your office encourage other communities to pursue place-based collaborative approaches to natural resource management?
Thank you so much for that question. And first, thank you for being a part of that journey for your community and for sticking with it for so long. I'm so excited that you are at that place where you were able to see that sign, that governor come and sign. I'm very excited for your community, but I agree with you that it should have never taken that long. It's very unfortunate that you see community leaders that have waited decades and aren't able to see the actualization of all their hard work that they've worked for so very long. So as governor, would make it a priority when communities come together and have formalized plans, would celebrate that to the highest level and to show the respect and the appreciation to those community leaders who are stepping forward in that way, and definitely not have the community wait for so long for the signage and passage and move forward on really codifying those rules and the expectations of the community, because as you've waited this long to have those rules in place, the degradation of the land and what has happened has just continued to get worse and worse and worse. Whereas if we had started way back when the issue was put forward and the plans were put into place and the community was around the support, we would be in a much different place. We of course can't go backwards and say we wish we would have done it sooner, although we all know we wish that was the case. But as governor, would expedite those plans and work alongside the community, because that's how I feel other communities will feel empowered to do it as well. Luckily, your community was very perseverant in what you had to do and continue working toward it for all these years, but other communities might not have that same level of patience and stick-to-itiveness to stick with it for that long. So I think as we move forward, your community is now an example of what can be, And we need to replicate that over and over and over again, so we have more and more areas that are covered and have the same attention, and that we have rules in place that can be enforced, so we can move forward towards a more resilient future.
Mahalo nui for that. I'm going to pass it off to Jenny in Pūpūkea.
Mahalo, Uʻi. Aloha, Heidi. Nice to see you.
Aloha, Jenny. Nice to
Hi.
see you.
Yeah, so I'll do the official blurb. My name is Jenny, and I come from the island of Oahu. I grew up and still live in Pūpūkea on the North Shore out here, where I actively work in ocean conservation, education, and stewardship. And I just want to say on behalf of our community, mahalo for all the work that you've done in our district. Appreciate the work that you've done. So the question that I have goes as follows. DLNR's Division of Aquatic Resources and Division of Forestry and Wildlife create the rules that help protect our natural resources across Hawaii. The Division of Conservation and Resources Enforcement, or DOCARE, is tasked with enforcing those rules. However, DOCARE is woefully underfunded, understaffed, and not fully equipped to uphold its natural resource enforcement responsibilities. How would you ensure DOCARE has the adequate funding it needs so that they can effectively enforce the rules and regulations currently in place to protect our natural and cultural resources? Also, how soon could we expect that to happen?
Thank you for that question. The issue of the enforcement is always the part that we have to focus on to ensuring that what we're hoping for actually comes to reality. So looking to DOCARE and looking at what's been going on, that would be a priority that we could start working on from day one. Like I mentioned, the Department of Land and Natural Resources and everything that happens within that department is one of my top priorities, not just for resource management, but also for land leases and many other things that Department of Land and Natural Resources is responsible for. And enforcement and having the appropriate staffing for DOCARE officers is one area of priority that I will definitely work towards. One solution that I think we could work towards is having DOCARE officers specific to different places, that is their area of responsibility, so that it's not, oh, we thought somebody was going, we didn't know they were at a different place, and we had officers here so they couldn't respond there. It's having very specified systems, which would include districts of DOCARE officers. This is your district, this is what you do, this is your area that you're focused on, so that we don't have such a widespread responsibility within DOCARE. And that would be something that I would want to start working on right away with the new director of Department of Land and Natural Resources, so that also the community would have a point of contact. So you have a point of contact. So if something's going on, you know specifically, this is the person who you can contact right away when you see something is going on, and you wouldn't have to wonder how or when it's going to happen, that the responses would be more immediate.
Mahalo, Heidi. Appreciate that. Okay, Kevin, I'm not sure who I'm passing to for question number 4.
You are passing to me.
Okay, and now here's Kevin with question number 4.
Thank you.
Okay. You know, we have seen the damage that over-tourism has done to our communities. We understand its outsized importance to the economy. But how exactly will your administration change how tourism is managed? And then second to that question, so how will your administration change how tourism is managed? And the second part is, help us understand what the destination management approach to tourism is, and how will you balance catering to visitors while being mindful of the needs of the community and the stress on our natural environment?
So the issue of over-tourism is definitely top of mind for me. As you know, the district I represent is the North Shore of Oahu, and we've seen the devastation that's caused to those communities, and just the over impacts that's happening to many of our natural resources in the North Shore area. As governor, we'll work with with many different stakeholders to decide how we're going to finally diversify our economy. I think that's a main issue that is the issue that continues us with focusing on tourism. So diversifying the economy and making sure that we have other means of having our economy thrive and revenue sources is something that will help us move away from tourism. So that has to happen while we address the issue of tourism and capacity issues. With having the over tourism and over impacts to specific communities, we have to look to different areas of managed access points. So as we know, a lot of people go to different hiking trails, go into our neighborhoods, go into different areas that we know are a concern. We had one issue like that in Kahaluʻu, that people were just trampling through neighborhoods and going into hiking places. So as governor, we'll really focus on making sure we address how tourists and visitors go into all different places, including our neighborhoods for hiking and other places, but also to our beaches and figuring out how we're going to manage the number of visitors going into our beaches. Kevin, you've disappeared. Oh, there you are. going to our areas. I think one thing to possibly think of is how the parking issues are regulated. As we know, even for our beaches, the parking is difficult, and so many visitors are coming, and residents can't even go to our beaches and enjoy our beaches. So looking to possibly visitors staying in one place and being brought into the area and just have that amount of visitors come in every day. There's ideas like how Hanauma Bay is managed by, if you're a visitor, you have to pay to come in. I think that's something we have to think about as well. But I think the main issue is to move away from our dependence on tourism so that we aren't so much catering to our tourism as opposed to supporting our residents.
Thanks, Heidi. You know, when you're a big person, you forget that if you turn an inch, you could accidentally fly your computer across the room on accident. So that's what happened.
Oh.
Anyway, I'll pass.
Oh, man.
I'll pass our Uncle Mac question on to Jenny.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Okay, Heidi. So this question, like Kevin said, is really coming from Uncle Mac Poi Poi out in Mo'omomi on the island of Molokai. So I'm just going to read it exactly the way that it's written. Something that is important to know is when we take something out of nature, whether it's fish, deer, or plants, we are creating a void. Before we take anything, we should understand how that void is going to be refilled. The answers are the same as they were in the past and are the same that we, as caretakers of our place, uphold today. We continue the legacy. The state has laws in place to protect some of our resources, but they aren't always the most effective in maintaining a balance. And many communities, such as Mo'omomi, are working to collaborate with the state on creating community-based subsistence fishing areas that would further protect our resources using place-based, hands-on knowledge from the people who actively know and care for that place every day. In that process, we find that those who oppose these proposed rules that would help ensure balance and abundance for future generations often claim rights and oppose any limitations. While we do, as Kanaka, have rights, we also have a responsibility. And those rights do not mean that we can take whatever we want, whenever we want, however we want. How will you, as governor, ensure that what is pono for a resource is considered despite the vocal opposition of those who just want to take without limits?
Thank you. That's a very, that's a question that we really have to take into account. As we know, I think what's happened is within our people, there's this feeling of scarcity and there's this feeling of wanting to have access. But I think it is about getting people back to the awareness of what we were taught to know, and that you only take what you need and you don't have that feeling of entitlement that it's mine to take in whatever way I want to take it. So I think it's about educational awareness and coming in and working with the communities and having that awareness in place, but also having that leadership to say that these are the parameters, these are the rules that we're going to have in place to be able to have a better future for generations to come, and just have to hold the line to that. And I think as more and more of the people will see that by sticking with these rules and being mindful of what we take, that the situation does get better and better and better, and it's not for a place of control, but it's a place of care, that we can bring more people to the awareness that that is the way that we need to uphold ourselves and to treat our land and our resources so that it is resilient for future generations. So as governor, I would stand by the community in moving forward on ensuring that we are having those regulations in place as far as gathering and do it in a mindful and a way that doesn't take more than you need, and really works with the community to stress the importance of that. I'm a Hawaiian, but also a Native American Cherokee Indian, and there's a saying that says, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we're borrowing from our children. And that's something that's very important for me to know, that when we do take more than we should, we are really taking from our future generations. So would stand in support of moving forward on regulations and explaining that it's going to take a strong leader to explain why this is necessary and explain why it's for the good of all of us. And as we do that and we set more and more examples of how that looks and have people know that not to be afraid and not to have that feeling of scarcity, that there is going to be enough for all of us, but we have to be mindful of what to take and not to overtake and be greedy with it. So I'll definitely stand in support of those rules and regulations put into place that are created in a thoughtful way for those who know what is best for our natural resources and work in spreading that awareness and education.
Mahalo, Heidi. I appreciate that. And I see Uncle Mac's name on here now, just after I asked the question on his behalf. Uncle Mac, you don't say anything. I'll pass it back to you.
No, I was surprised because I thought it was 3 o'clock. I was taking nap. Sorry.
Oh,
That's okay, Uncle Mac. I was able to ask your question, and Heidi was just answering it now. So what you heard her talking about just now was her answer to your question, Uncle Mac.
Thank you, Jenny. And thank you, Heidi.
thank you. Thank you for all the work that you've done and continue to do.
Mahalo.
Thank you, Heidi. We don't have any new questions coming in. I did want to ask one that came up in the past, one of the past sessions, and it's, how would you as governor deal with kind of the interference of other policymakers in the attempts by communities to manage their resources? I ask this question because it's something that has actually happened in just about every community's attempt to develop and co-manage resources with the government. And the legislators and others have come in using the power of their office, arguably, to stall or prevent communities from moving forward. And I understand too that these people happen to be our friends sometimes. And so I'm wondering how you would deal with something like that.
So as council member, I've always stood with the community in how they feel best to manage their resources and advocated for the community voice. As governor, that would be the position that I would take as well, and would make sure that when I'm working with my fellow legislators and council members and mayors and different stakeholders that are involved in the process, including the military, one agency that has been somewhat difficult sometimes even to get out and look at what's going on in different areas of our communities is those areas that are controlled by the military and how we have limited access to go see what's really going on. So it's going to take strong leadership to make sure the community's voice is the strongest and that we move forward on the initiatives of the community without those kind of barriers from legislation. And so if there is strong opposition from different legislators, as governor would really come in and be a voice and help stand by the communities in how to best move forward and change any type of laws or regulations that we need to change to be able to better support the work of the community groups.
Thank you, Heidi. I don't see any new questions yet. Oh wait, here's one. Okay, here's another for you. There has been a lot of talk about the need for transparency and the need to get big money out of politics. As a governor, what would you do to counteract the impacts of PACs and mainland players?
I think it's definitely time to
Oh wait, Heidi, you're
thank you for
cutting out for a
listening,
second.
and oh, okay.
Okay, there you go.
Hello?
I think you're good now.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Uh-oh, can you hear us?
Hello.
Oh, yeah, we hear you now.
Okay. As governor, I do believe that that's a huge issue that we need to deal with. For myself included, having I don't take any big donations from unions, special interest developers, or any of those agencies who really end up wanting to ask for something after those campaign contributions are made. So as governor, I will stand behind looking into making changes to campaign spending commission and donations and the amount of donations that are allowable and the types of donations that are brought in for candidates. I think in the long run, this will be good for both candidates and for those who are involved in that pay-to-play network that we know is so prevalent here, and help us to have good candidates that want to stay true to being a voice for the people and not having the millions of dollars to run a campaign. It'll be good for us to have a better range of candidates that are more independent thinkers, that are there for the people and not for special interest. As council member, I've seen that more times than not, that even when people come in with with better intentions than they end up having at the end, it is because they became very beholden to special interests and have become very attached to the benefits of voting in certain ways and doing certain things to make sure that they stay on the right side of those big money donors. So we do have to make a change to our campaign spending and the way donations are brought in. And as governor would lead the charge in how we can make corrections to that, because it is going to be the way that we have more candidates, more independent thinkers, and more candidates that are working solely for the people.
Thank you, Heidi. We got more questions coming in now. Here's an interesting one, given that the revitalization of the Hawaiian language has also helped to lead to kind of, once again, revealing practices of the past, especially in regards to taking care of our environment and our community. And what would you as governor do to support the revitalization of Hawaiian language in the classroom?
So within the classroom, within the Department of Education system, really elevate our Hawaiian language and Hawaiian studies components of our education in the Department of Education, but also support charter schools and make sure that we have that charter schools have the amount of funding that they need to be able to operate successfully and have places and support to be able to have Hawaiian immersion charter schools and all the different types of educational settings that can really focus on Hawaiian language, Hawaiian culture, and give those educational systems support that they don't have currently right now. So it would be both within the Department of Education, but also supporting charter schools financially and with more resources than they have now. Many charter schools and Hawaiian schools just don't have the capacity to be able to be successful in what they want to do and can do to really elevate and promote Hawaiian language and culture and education for our next generation.
Thank you, Heidi. And this is a philosophical question that has come up in the pursuit of community-based natural resource management or co-management, co-governance of our environment. And that question, though simple, is pretty complex. It would be interested in your thoughts. And it's very simple. Who is the community?
The community are those individuals who are connected to the land and are really looking to be stewards of that place. So as we know, there's even within, as I was talking about the Hauʻula community, there's people that weren't originally from that space, but have really come along, people that have that connection and have the generational connectivity to that space. And they come along and they adopt that same heart, that same mindset, and would want to be a part of doing right by that place and by the people of that place. So I think community means those individuals who are come alongside the people and the place and want to do the right thing based on the indicators that we talked about right now, going back to resource management, resilience, sustainability, and just treating people in the way that that really shows care for our people and our place and for future generations.
Thank you. And this looks like our last question. Billions have been allocated by the legislature this year to address what is owed to Hawaiians to ensure their claims for housing are met. How, as governor, will you ensure the money is spent well and in a timely manner such that we don't have a similar situation as we have to our current rail project?
Thank you for that question. First of all, the release of that money, although it was very good to see it was released, in many ways, sadly, I saw it as a little bit of a pacifier type situation to all of a sudden drop a lot of money and having so many strings attached to that money and not having site control of where you want to build while having such time restrictions on those monies. Unfortunately, we do see that a lot of times where we know the issues and we know that the people have been asking that the Department of Hawaiian Homelands and that the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act be fulfilled and that the people are finally off the wait list and into homes. And the way that those things have been managed for me is one of the saddest things that has happened for our people and for our land. So as governor, this is one reason why I did find it very important to run for governor at this time, because as we know, a lot of the 65-year land leases are going to be coming up. The next governor is going to decide what happens with that. So to the question of what's going to happen with that money, first we have to make sure that we have site control for land area, that we have infrastructure in place to be able to build quickly. Because once we find a plan of how we're going to start building quickly and let the people be a part of that process and have that focused attention to it, I believe we can move very quickly into bringing all hundreds, if not thousands, of homes online. We have a situation right now within the Homeland City Council that there was a land swap that happened with a large parcel of land that was under Department of Hawaiian Homelands that was used for the rail project, ironically. And when I came into council, I realized that there was no finalization of what land was given to the Department of Hawaiian Homelands for that land swap. It was in discussion only and not actually anything in writing to where the DHHL was given land in that land swap process. So that was finally finalized here recently. And then I asked what's going to happen with that land now that we have the land. This is perfect timing. We can use it for housing as we have the monies available. And a representative from DHHL said, oh, we don't know if we're going to use it for homes at this time yet. And those are the kind of statements that cause me such great concern, because why wouldn't that be the top of mind for us about what we're doing with the land that we have? So as governor, I'm going to do a very extensive inventory of all our land available to us through DLNR, all the lease land and what's happening with our leasehold lands, what are the lease rents that we're having. As we know, HB 499 was moving forward, and my daughters and myself included went out and rallied at the Capitol to make sure that HB 499 was vetoed, because that was going to allow for the extension of the 65-year land leases without any public hearing. So big corporations and the military who lease for $1 a year, we're going to be able to do that for another 65 years, which essentially moves into a land taking. So it's a long answer, but this is something I'm very, very passionate about. But the only way to really realize and make sure that that money benefits the people is to have site control and have the land identified of where we're going to build and have infrastructure in place to build quickly and finally have that focus on building homes for our people.
Thank you, Heidi. I think that's sort of the questions that came in. do you have anything else you would want us to know or learn about you and your vision?
I just want to say thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you. My main focus is a very along the lines with what you have done and continue to do. Just stewarding our land, our resources, and making sure that we have go back to learning lessons from the past to move to a better future. We have, as we know, have that knowledge of the ahupua'a system and knowing how to manage our watersheds in a way that's resilient and make sure that every community has what they need to not just survive, but to thrive. So as governor, I want to work alongside you and others who have been doing that and continue to do that and really put action towards making sure we have sustainable and resilient communities. It has been that way in the past. We can do that again and look forward to working with you as we make that a reality for our future.
Thank you, Heidi. We're honored that you gave us your time and appreciate that you chose to talk with us. And we wish you luck in the next couple weeks.
Thank you so much. Very much appreciate all you do. If you have any questions or if you want to contact me, the email is info@heidiforhawaii.com. My website is www.heidiforhawaii.com.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Take good care. Aloha.